Confess your sins!
Mercy! Please forgive us! Please forgive us!
Life after the court wedding appeared picture perfect on the outside. Anozie went about his business with the quiet confidence of a man who had everything he wanted: a beautiful wife, a child on the way, and a thriving empire. But something felt wrong. It started as a nagging feeling in the back of his mind. The way Chimamanda's eyes would light up whenever Mike arrived for work. The subtle shift in her voice when she casually asked, "Has the driver come in yet?" She spoke more about Mike's opinions on small matters than she did about Anozie's own long work days. And when Anozie reached for her at night, she recoiled slightly, as though his touch belonged to a stranger. The whispers from the household staff only fueled his growing suspicion. One evening, after noticing Chimamanda staring out the window toward the garage where Mike was polishing the cars, Anozie made a quiet decision. He could no longer ignore the possibility that something inappropriate was happening between his wife and his driver. The thought filled him with a cold fury mixed with deep hurt. Rather than confront them immediately, he chose strategy. He confided in his most trusted best friend, a sharp and loyal man named Emeka, and together they began laying their own trap. Anozie installed hidden cameras throughout the mansion, discreetly placed in the living room, bedroom, and even the corridors. He told no one except Emeka. Then he announced a sudden work trip. "I'll be gone for a few days," he told Chimamanda one morning, kissing her forehead. "The company driver will take me to the airport. Mike can stay back and handle things around the house." Chimamanda nodded, trying to hide the spark of relief in her eyes. As Anozie drove away with another driver, he watched the mansion shrink in the rearview mirror, his heart heavy but his resolve firm. What the cameras captured over the next few days shattered Anozie when he reviewed the footage in a private hotel room. There, in vivid detail, was the truth. Mike and Chimamanda locked in passionate embraces in his own marital bed. Their conversations were even more damning. They spoke openly about the pregnancy being Mike's child, the court wedding as a stepping stone, and the planned accidental death on Saturday. Mike's voice was clear as he explained how he would tamper with the engine car. Chimamanda, though hesitant at times, went along with the evil scheme, whispering about the wealth they would inherit once Anozie was gone. Anozie sat in stunned silence, watching the recordings multiple times. Betrayal cut deep, not just the affair, but the calculated plot to murder him and steal everything he had built. Tears of anger and sadness welled in his eyes as he thought of the child who wasn't his. Emeka, who was with him, placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "What do you want to do, boss?" Anozie's response was calm but icy. "We play along. Let them think their plan is working perfectly." He decided to turn their scheme against them. The hidden cameras kept rolling, gathering more evidence. Anozie instructed Emeka to prepare a trusted mechanic and make arrangements for the car. The trap was now reversed. Back at the mansion, Mike and Chimamanda celebrated their supposed progress. Chimamanda rubbed her growing belly and Mike kissed her passionately, believing they were untouchable. The suspense in the air was thick. Anozie, hundreds of miles away, reviewed every second of footage, his pain turning into a quiet, calculated determination. The man they thought they could destroy was now several steps ahead, waiting for the perfect moment to strike back. The days leading up to the planned Saturday felt electric with anticipation for Mike and Chimamanda. They moved through the mansion with a secret swagger, exchanging knowing glances and stolen touches whenever the staff's backs were turned. Chimamanda's pregnancy was beginning to show, and she wore it like a badge of their victory. "Just a few more days," Mike whispered to her one afternoon in the living room, his hand resting protectively on her belly. "He drives himself to the gym, like always. I'll handle the car tonight when everyone's asleep. Brake failure, maybe a little something with the steering. It will look like a terrible accident on that busy expressway. No one will ever know." Chimamanda nodded, though her eyes still carried shadows of doubt. The guilt had not vanished. It had simply been buried under layers of justification and fear of losing Mike. "I just want this over with. Then we can finally be together without hiding." They made love in the master bedroom that afternoon, bold and reckless, unaware that hidden lenses captured every moment in silent judgment. Meanwhile, Anozie had returned quietly from his trip, slipping back into the city under the radar. He reviewed the latest footage with Emeka in a secluded safe house. The evidence was overwhelming. Clear conversations about murder, the affair laid bare, even their celebration of the pregnancy as a tool for inheritance. Anozie's pain had hardened into something colder: resolve. "They think I'm a fool," he said quietly, his voice steady, despite the rage simmering beneath. "We'll give them exactly what they want until we don't." He instructed Emeka to bring in a highly skilled mechanic he trusted with his life. Together, they examined the car Mike had already begun tampering with. The mechanic quickly identified and reversed the sabotage, making the vehicle safer than it had ever been. Anozie then made a decisive move. He arranged for the tampered parts to be removed and the car driven to a remote, abandoned location where it would never be found. The stage was set for their counter-performance. On that fateful Saturday morning, Anozie acted as if nothing had changed. He kissed Chimamanda goodbye, wished her a peaceful day, and drove out in the same car they had rigged for his death. Mike and Chimamanda watched him leave from the window, hearts pounding with dark excitement. The moment the gates closed behind him, they erupted in celebration. Bottles of champagne were popped in the living room. They danced and laughed, toasting to their future wealth and freedom. "To the late Oga Anozie," Mike cheered, pulling Chimamanda into a passionate kiss. For them, it was the beginning of a new life. But Anozie had not gone to the gym. He had driven to a secure location where Emeka waited. The real plan was unfolding. Emeka, wearing a small hidden camera pinned discreetly to his shirt, was dispatched to the mansion with devastating news. As he entered the house, the camera rolling, he walked in on Mike and Chimamanda in a compromising position on the living room couch. They scrambled apart in shock, adjusting their clothes frantically. "There's no need to explain," Emeka said coldly, his voice heavy with disgust. "Your husband, he died in a car accident on his way to the gym. He's in the morgue now." He delivered the line with perfect conviction, watching their faces closely. The couple froze for a moment, then a wave of visible relief washed over them. As soon as Emeka left, they turned on loud music and danced even more wildly, celebrating what they believed was the perfect execution of their evil plan. They began openly discussing how they would claim the property's transfer account and raise their child in luxury. Unknown to them, Anozie sat, watching the live feed, his best friend's hidden camera transmitting every treacherous word and joyful dance. The betrayal was complete. Anozie allowed himself one bitter smile. He had given them 1 week to revel in their false victory. The week following the fake news of Anozie's death was one of pure, unbridled joy for Mike and Chimamanda. The mansion, once a symbol of the man they had plotted against, now felt like their kingdom. They moved through its luxurious rooms with a sense of ownership, making plans late into the night. Mike had already begun studying documents he found in Anozie's study, whispering about lawyers, accounts, and how they would quietly transfer assets once the mourning period began. Chimamanda, her hand often resting on her growing belly, allowed herself to dream openly. "Our child will never know poverty," she said softly one evening, leaning against Mike as they sat by the pool. For the first time in months, the guilt seemed to fade beneath the glow of victory. They hosted no visitors, telling the staff that they needed time to grieve in private. Behind closed doors, however, grief was the last thing on their minds. Music filled the house. They danced, laughed, and made love without fear of interruption. Mike would occasionally mimic Anozi's voice in cruel jokes, sending Chimamanda into fits of giggles. That fool never suspected a thing, Mike boasted one afternoon, popping another bottle of expensive champagne. All that wealth, and he died like a common man on the road. Now it's ours. But the celebration carried an undercurrent of tension. Chimamanda still had moments of quiet reflection, staring at the wedding ring on her finger with a distant look. Mike noticed, but quickly distracted her with more plans and affection. "We did what we had to do for our family," he would say, kissing her deeply. The baby's kick seemed to reassure them both that their dark path had been worth it. Meanwhile, Anozi remained hidden, watching every moment through the hidden cameras and Emeka's reports. The footage of their shameless celebration, dancing on the very day they believed he had died, only deepened his resolve. He gave them exactly 7 days to expose themselves fully, gathering irrefutable evidence. His mother had also returned to the city during this time, but that revelation was yet to come. On the 8th day, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the mansion, a firm knock echoed through the grand entrance. Mike and Chimamanda were lounging in the living room, Mike's arm wrapped possessively around her waist. "Must be that useless gate man again," Mike grumbled, laughing as they walked toward the door together, still in their relaxed home clothes. Chimamanda opened the door with a smile that instantly froze on her face. There stood Anozi, alive, composed, and flanked by 2 stern police officers. The color drained from her face. Mike's grip on her waist tightened in shock. For a split second, the world seemed to stop. Chimamanda's knees buckled. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing hysterically. "Anozi, please, it was all Mike's idea. He planned everything. The dating, the pregnancy, the car. I didn't want any of this. He forced me." Her voice cracked with desperation as she threw herself at his feet, clutching his legs. Mike stood paralyzed, his mouth opening and closing without sound, the triumphant lover reduced to a cornered animal. Anozi looked down at them with calm, piercing eyes that held years of built-up pain and disappointment. "Arrest them both," he said quietly to the officers. "Attempted murder, conspiracy, and everything else the evidence shows." The police moved in swiftly, cuffing Mike and Chimamanda as she continued wailing apologies and accusations. As they were led away, the reality crashed down on the couple. Their perfect plan had crumbled. The man they had tried to bury was standing tall, watching them with the quiet dignity they had underestimated from the beginning. The police van door slammed shut, carrying away Mike and Chimamanda into a future of trials, shame, and long prison sentences. Anozi stood at the entrance of his mansion, watching the vehicle disappear down the driveway. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of the city. He had won, but victory tasted bitter. The betrayal ran deep. Not just the affair or the murder plot, but the realization that the woman he had loved and the child she carried were never truly his. Emeka placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. "It's over, my brother. You did what needed to be done." Later that evening, as the weight of the past week settled on him, Anozi's mother arrived at the mansion. Mama Anozi was a strong-willed woman from the village, dressed in simple attire that contrasted sharply with the opulence around her. She had returned to the city upon hearing rumors of trouble surrounding her son. Sitting with him in the quiet living room, she took his hands in hers and spoke with the wisdom only a mother could offer. "You are alive today only by the grace of God and technology," she said, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "That car was meant to end your life, but you outsmarted them. However, my son, there is something else you must face. Years ago, before you became this big man in the city, you got a young village girl pregnant. You abandoned her and your son, your 10-year-old boy, because you were ashamed. You wanted a classy city queen. Look where that brought you." Anozi bowed his head, tears finally falling as memories flooded back. The young village girl, Neka, had been his first love. In his rise to wealth and status, he had left them behind, sending money occasionally but never claiming them publicly. His mother's words pierced his heart. "There is still time for a second chance," she continued. "Go back, make things right. Your city wife betrayed you, but that village woman raised your son alone all these years. She deserves better. So does the boy." The next morning, Anozi traveled to the village. The dusty roads and familiar sights stirred something deep within him. When he arrived at Neka's modest home, she stood at the doorway, shock written across her face. Their son, a bright-eyed 10-year-old named Chinedu, peeked from behind her. Anozi fell to his knees, apologizing through tears. "I was a fool. I abandoned you both. Please forgive me." Neka, though hurt, saw the sincerity in his eyes. Over the following days, they talked for hours. Anozi promised to make amends. He married her in a traditional ceremony, then brought both her and their son back to the city. The mansion, once filled with lies, now echoed with genuine laughter as Anozi enrolled Chinedu in one of the best schools and promised to send Neka to school to complete her education. He vowed to give them the life they had always deserved, working daily to rebuild trust and heal old wounds. In time, Anozi found peace. The evil plot that nearly destroyed him had instead led him back to his roots and true family. Mike and Chimamanda faced justice, their greed costing them everything. As for Anozi, he had learned that real wealth was not in money or status, but in integrity, forgiveness, and the love of those who truly stood by you. What makes this story so gripping is how deeply human every character feels. Mike isn't just a villain, he's a frustrated young man whose dreams were crushed by circumstance, slowly poisoned by envy. Chimamanda represents the painful conflict between love and morality, a woman torn between loyalty to her first love and the horror of the path he chose. And Anozi, he embodies quiet strength and the painful cost of ambition. The tale masterfully shows how greed can corrupt even the closest relationships, turning intimacy into conspiracy and trust into surveillance. The suspense builds not through loud action, but through whispered lies, stolen glances, and the slow unraveling of deception, reminding us that the most dangerous threats often come from those closest to us. The greatest lesson here is that no amount of wealth is worth losing your soul. Mike and Chimamanda's greed led them down a road of betrayal, lies, and attempted murder, only to lose everything when their scheme collapsed. True success and happiness cannot be built on evil foundations. Anozi's redemption arc further teaches us the importance of taking responsibility for past mistakes and choosing integrity over appearances. No matter how far you've strayed, it is never too late to return to what is right, whether that means seeking justice or seeking forgiveness and reconciliation with family. In many African societies, especially in Nigeria, stories like this resonate deeply because they reflect real tensions between village roots and city ambitions, between love and material desire. The pressure to make it in the city often pushes people into moral compromises, as we see with Mike. Yet, the ending, Anozi returning to his village family, carries a powerful cultural message. True fulfillment often lies in honoring one's origins and responsibilities rather than chasing superficial status. This tale serves as both entertainment and a mirror to society, warning against the dangers of get-rich-quick schemes and the destruction they bring to families and communities. What did you think of this story? Did Chimamanda's internal struggle make you sympathize with her, or did you find Mike's manipulation too unforgivable? Which character surprised you the most? Anozi's clever counterplan or the final redemption? Drop your thoughts in the comments or tell me which part moved you the most. Would you like to hear a sequel exploring what happens to Mike and Chimamanda in prison, or perhaps a different ending? Thank you for joining me on this thrilling journey through betrayal and justice. If you enjoyed this story, please share it with friends and family. Great tales are meant to be passed on. Hit the like button, subscribe for more captivating African-inspired stories filled with suspense, drama, and life lessons. Drop a comment with the title of the next story you'd love to hear. Until next time, remember, watch closely those you trust the most. Stay safe, stay wise, and choose integrity always.